The right squabbles over which alt-tech platform should gain primacy, while the left gains ground every day. Anti-GETTR posts argue that GAB is the only place where all tenets of the First Amendment are honored, but that argument falls apart in the face of GAB's pornography ban. All the while, each platform's true advantages fly under the radar. Welcome to Old Foundry Media. I'm your host, the Crane Man. Let's fire it up. I want to start by saying that I use both GETTR and GAB pretty much daily. I appreciate both platforms as well, and the mission expressed by each. I understand why each platform draws its line in the sand where it does, but I fail to see the reason for this fight between the two. Torba claims that the creation of other social media platforms is subverting what he has been doing for 5 years, a claim I don't understand, and a claim he was not pushed on in his Timcast IRL appearance. Competition is not subversion.
You know, what these people are doing is they're really trying to subvert the work that I've been doing for 5.5 years and the work that we've been doing at GAB. And it's us versus the billionaires. So, you know, you have Miles Gao, who is the Chinese billionaire behind GETTR. You have Peter Thiel, who's behind Rumble. And you have Rebecca Mercer and the Mercer family, who's behind Parler.
As we can see in this article from the Daily Mail, a black pundit was banned from GETTR for using the N-word, then called GETTR out as free speech frauds on Twitter, even though the GETTR terms of service explicitly ban the use of racial epithets. And there were posts saying things like, wow, even Twitter doesn't ban black people from using the N-word. But I don't see it that way. It seems to me that banning racial epithets, regardless of the skin color of the person using the epithet, is the only true fair path of enforcement. In this section of his GETTR profile, we can see Bryson Gray's reaction to Nick Fuentes being banned on GETTR. If you agree with what Bryson posted, and you think GAB is the true free speech alternative, can you explain to me how banning porn is different than banning racism? Both are considered protected speech under the First Amendment. Why is Torba's reasoning valid when used in the porn argument, when the same reasoning is not valid for Miller to use in the racism argument? Torba argues you can't film porn in your town square without being arrested.
The way to test this is go out to your town square, right, and start preaching the word of God, and you'll be fine. Stump for a political candidate, you'll be fine.
Honestly,
try filming porn in the town square, right? Is that speech? Is that protected? Are you going to land up in jail?
A rebuttal to Andrew's argument is to go down to ye old town square and start screaming racial and religious epithets. See if you don't get arrested for disturbing the peace at a minimum. If you can explain what I'm missing, I would love to see it posted in the comments of this video. It appears to me that some people are angry that GETTR has seen a spike in success lately, and they're attacking GETTR but with a flimsy argument. The opinion-based decision Torba used to justify banning pornography uses the same rationale as the opinion-based decision Miller uses to justify banning racism. Yet the majority of the attacks on GETTR say things to indicate that GAB is more free speech oriented. Like this post here where Jonathan claims that GAB allows all speech, but that is not technically correct, as pornography is banned on GAB, for the same reason racism and pornography are both banned on GETTR, and that reason is an opinion of the leaders of the companies. Though again, both pornographic and racist speech is protected by the First Amendment. The odd thing is, there are arguments to support GAB having real advantages, but they aren't focused on anywhere near as much as GAB's lack of censorship of racism. GAB is open source and built on its own infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean both their software and hardware. GETTR is proprietary code running on big tech infrastructure. If you're going to say GAB is better, these are the things to highlight. Highlighting that you can use the N-word is not perceived among common people as well as some of you seem to think it is. Most regular folks do not want to have to wade through a river of racism, pornography, or violence when they get on social media. They want to get on and watch videos and read articles about things they are interested in. They want to communicate with associates and friends. They want to debate those with opposing views without the threat of being banned because their opinions are common among conservative or right-leaning thought. In this image, we can see that those who wish to express racism are free to do so on GAB. I understand Torba's decision not to ban anything protected by the First Amendment, except pornography, because that's okay to ban in his opinion. And while the opinions like this one in this image are as low as it gets, I understand not censoring this. Better the enemy you know, in my opinion. However, it seems that some people fail to understand that there's a large group of regular folks out there who will not be happy when they encounter expressions of the type in this image, and will cease the use of GAB because of it. Not everyone agrees with the idea of having to filter social media themselves. Some would rather a platform where they don't encounter trash content in the first place. You can call these folks cowardly or weak or whatever, but it doesn't convince anyone to change their mind. I understand you can simply block people as you encounter them on GAB to avoid seeing garbage content repeatedly. What I don't understand are the people who think Torba is justified in banning pornography while Miller is unjustified in banning racism. What I also don't understand is why the people who would tell you to just block the racists on GAB if you don't want to see them can't just block GETTR if they don't want to see it. Moving on, GETTR claims to not do any shadow banning or algorithmic editing of posts. But you have to trust their word in this case, as you cannot see their code. And as you can see, this does not stop people from claiming that GETTR has shadow banned them. With GAB, you can inspect the source code and determine with your own eyes what is going on under the hood. As you can see, this does not stop people from claiming that GAB has shadow banned them. This image shows how much value Twitter stock has lost in the last 6 months. GETTR was made available to the public about 6 months ago. Is GETTR exclusively responsible for this drop in Twitter stock value? No, but I think it's safe to say GETTR has contributed to it. It's probably safe to say GAB has contributed as well, though in a less high-profile way as of late. Let's look at this fight in a metaphoric way. In this metaphor, the left are the Roman legions and the right are the Germanic tribes. Jason Miller becomes Arminius in this metaphor. He looks like a Roman, but he helps the Germanic tribes fight the Romans. Andrew Torba becomes Maroboduus, king of the Marcomanni. The great influx of new users GETTR has seen in recent weeks due to Twitter censorship becomes the Varian Disaster at the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. In the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, Arminius and allied tribesmen inflicted a stunning defeat on the Roman legions. After the slaughter of the Romans, Arminius sent the head of Publius Quintilius Varus, the Roman commander, to Maroboduus in an attempt to forge an alliance. But Maroboduus turned him down and remained neutral. This led to an indecisive battle between Arminius and Maroboduus. Eventually, Arminius is defeated by Germanicus and later assassinated. Maroboduus' fate is to have his throne usurped and die under Roman captivity in Ravenna. In reality, things have worked a bit differently. Miller has sent no metaphoric head of Varus to Torba that I'm aware of. And Torba is not remaining neutral. He is attacking GETTR openly, instead of the Romans. I believe this will only make each of them suffer as their metaphoric counterparts did, and like their metaphoric counterparts, they will miss a unique opportunity to inflict a grievous blow to the dominant power in their time by not uniting to fight their common enemy. So instead of attacking the Romans, who are bearing down on the Germanic tribes with ever-increasing pressure, the tribes fight amongst themselves over some ridiculous purity test that relies on a flaccid argument in the first place. In the meantime, their front lines are being repeatedly demolished, and they're losing territory east of the Rhine at a shockingly high rate. To me, it appears to be intensely foolish, especially when one considers the COVID tyranny the world has experienced recently. Big tech is evil. Everyone already knows this without a doubt, just like the Romans invaded Germania to subdue the tribes without a doubt. So swing any bloody weapon you can get your hands on against the Romans before they overrun the entirety of Germania. Don't worry about whether or not the weapon might break when you swing it, or how comfortable it is in your hand. If the weapon becomes useless for some reason, pick up another one and swing some more. Joe Rogan joined GETTR because Twitter censored Dr. Robert Malone, not because GETTR passed some free speech purity test. There will always be a large number of mainstream folks who will not join GAB due to the open racism. You can argue about what is and what is not technically racism, and where you can find racism, but that's not the point. Quit worrying about whether or not a platform will allow you to use racial epithets. It makes you look pathetic, not cool or edgy or intellectual or whatever you're thinking. Go gather evidence and forge arguments that enable you to present meaningful discourses that have a chance at changing things for the better.
You make everything you're complaining about infinitely worse. There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit, and that's because no matter how bad it is, some stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse.
This image portrays how GAB fans would portray what happened between Jason Miller appearing on Timcast IRL and Andrew Torba appearing on Timcast IRL. Again, this image portrays GAB as the only place for free speech, but the reality is that both platforms ban pornography. But GAB doesn't ban racism, even though both are protected by the First Amendment. So GAB isn't the only place that supports free speech in its entirety. That is a technically incorrect statement. I was surprised to see Tim Pool let Torba slide on the banning of pornography as easily as he did, even though he used the same reasoning Miller used when discussing banning racism. However, Tim told Miller that he thought Miller sounded like complete bullshit, but only rebutted Torba with a statement about Torba's position being an opinion and that he personally understands.
Look at many people who've self-ID'd as being part of that group or part of that ideology.
Bro, I don't think you got an argument here, man. This sounds like complete bullshit.
Pornography is protected by the First Amendment technically, but I would say that the Founding Fathers would be appalled that is protected and that SCOTUS ruled that, because the Founding Fathers believed that our country and our rights and our liberties belong to a morally righteous people, and I don't think that they would defend that. And secondly,
well, that's an opinion.
It is. It's my opinion. Sure.
So I do think it's fair to point out, because we do have people asking about porn.
Sure.
Personally, I understand why you're like, look, this is not something we want on our platform.
Anyway, the negativity being spewed is not going over well in every case, as we can see in this GETTR post. I'll end by saying this. If you want some mix of Twitter and streaming that is curated in a way where racist and religious epithets is a bridge too far, use GETTR. But beware their reliance on big tech infrastructure, as what happened to Parler can easily happen to GETTR. You'll also have to trust GETTR when they say they do not alter your feed in any way, as their source code is proprietary. If you want a place that doesn't ban anything they're not legally obligated to ban, except pornography because that's a line that's okay to draw for opinion reasons, use GAB. You won't have to worry about GAB being deplatformed like Parler was, because GAB runs on its own infrastructure. It's also open source, so you can see what the code does with your own eyes. But you will encounter some lowbrow knuckle-dragger takes on GAB. Personally, the longest block list of all my social media accounts is on GAB, and there's no close second. In my opinion, if you're not afraid to use the block function, and you're not concerned with racial and religious epithets being removed from a platform, you should use both, as there aren't many situations where putting all your eggs in one basket is the optimal action to take. Most importantly, remember that both are useful weapons against big social media. Big thanks to all my followers, subscribers, and commenters. Like this video and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the content. This is the Crane Man, punching out.